All right, let's talk about the cloud. You've got these three giants, right? AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. They can feel kind of overwhelming. So today, we're going to demystify them. We're going to break them down to their absolute core building blocks so you can finally see what really makes them tick. You ever just open an app on your phone and wonder, how in the world does this thing work? Where does all the data live? How does it get to my screen so fast? That's exactly what we're about to uncover. We're going to look at the fundamental pieces that make pretty much every modern application run. So here's our game plan for this. We're going to start with a simple building challenge. Then we'll build our app piece by piece, starting with its brain, then its memory, its connections, and finally, its security. And at the end, we'll have a little showdown between the big three providers. Okay, so to make this all feel real, let's just imagine we're building a web app. Right here, right now. Let's forget all the complicated jargon for a minute. We just have an idea, and we need a place for that idea to live and run. Turns out, almost every application, I don't care how complex it is, really relies on four fundamental things. It needs a brain to do the actual thinking, some memory to store stuff, connections to talk to the world, and, of course, a security guard to control who gets in. So let's build our app using these four pieces. First up, step one, the brain. This is the engine room of our whole operation. It's the part that actually does all the work. And in the cloud world, we call this compute. So what even is compute? Well, it's really just processing power that you can rent. See, instead of going out and buying a physical server and sticking it in a closet somewhere, you just rent a virtual one in the cloud. This virtual machine is what runs your code and handles all the logic that makes your app do its thing. Now, this is where you start to see the pattern. Check out how each of the big three names this core service. Amazon Web Services, or AWS, calls it EC2. Microsoft's Azure is super straightforward, they just call it virtual machines. And Google Cloud Platform, or GCP, calls theirs compute engine. See? Different names, but it's the exact same fundamental idea. All right, so our app has a brain. It can think. That's awesome. But an app that can't remember anything isn't very useful, is it? It needs some memory. And that brings us to our second building block, storage. Just think of cloud storage as a massive, basically infinite digital filing cabinet. It's where you toss everything your app needs to remember, user profiles, photos, videos, important files, you name it. This kind of storage is often called object storage, and it's built to be super durable and handle just a mind-boggling amount of data. And here we go again with the brand names for that giant filing cabinet. AWS has one of its most famous services ever, S3. Azure calls its version blob storage, and blob just stands for binary large object. And Google, well, they keep it simple with cloud storage. Okay, so our app has a brain and it has memory. It's running, it's storing data, but it's kind of happening in a vacuum. It's on a deserted island. How do users actually get to it? We need to build the roads. We need networking. Networking in the cloud is all about creating your own little private, isolated section of the cloud. It's kind of like building a digital fence around your app and its data. This lets you control all the traffic, who can talk to your app, and how. It's basically the virtual postal service delivering requests from users to your app and sending the responses right back. And this slide is pretty cool because it shows just how similar the providers are on these core things. AWS and GCP both call this service a VPC, which stands for Virtual Private Cloud. Azure calls theirs a VNet for virtual network. They all do the exact same essential job, giving you your own secure corner of the cloud. So we've got our brain, our memory, and our connections. Our app is live. But there's one really, really critical piece missing. Who gets the keys to the front door? Who's actually allowed inside? This is our final building block, the security guard, or as we call it, identity. Identity and access management, it's literally the bouncer at the club door. It's the one checking IDs and making sure everyone follows the rules. It handles two big things: authentication, which is proving you are who you say you are, and authorization, which is what you're actually allowed to do once you get inside. And this doesn't just apply to people, it applies to other services too. So for this crucial role, AWS and Google have services simply called IAM. Pretty straightforward. But Azure leverages its long history in the corporate world with something called Azure Active Directory, which is a system tons of companies already use to manage who can access what on their internal networks. So, we did it. We laid all four foundational stones for application. Now let's just pull back for a second and see how it all stacks up in the final showdown. And there it is. This is your cheat sheet to the cloud: compute, storage, networking, and identity. These four things are the absolute pillars. It doesn't matter that these companies offer hundreds of other services, because almost everything is built on top of these core ideas. EC2, S3, VPC, IAM, virtual machines, blob storage, VNet, Azure AD. The names are a little different, but the jobs are exactly the same. The big takeaway here is that you now basically hold the Rosetta Stone for the cloud. By just understanding these four service categories, you can look at any of the big three cloud providers and immediately get the gist of what's going on. You can speak the language now. And that brings us to one last thought. Now that you understand that the core DNA is pretty much the same across the board, the question changes, doesn't it? It's not which one is the best, but which one is the best for me? And with this foundation, you're now totally equipped to start exploring that exact question.